With the recent surge, especially as it concerns gas, and not only that, and also we're not finding kerosene in any major filling station, many Nigerians seem to have indeed turned to wood. And when I mean wood, we mean firewood. Now, with the recent move by the federal government to see how they can deal with the issue of deforestation, that seems not to have in any way helped, knowing that many Nigerians still turn to firewood to help them, especially as it concerns their energy need when it comes to cooking. Nigeria continues to experience high deforestation rates with annual losses around 3.5% to 3.7% of its forest cover, causing significant environmental damage and social impacts. Recent efforts to curb or combat this has not indeed yielded any result. Hence, we are still losing more trees by the day. But with Nigeria's continuous loss of trees and also vegetation, what really impact will these have, not just on the economy, but also we're talking about health of Nigerians, knowing that our trees are indeed a major one as it concerns dealing with the issue of CO2 and indeed increasing the balance when it comes to oxygen. But with that in mind and every other impact this will have on long term, all we need to do is to see how we can indeed deal with the issue of deforestation, hence a need for us to look at it on this lovely edition of Dialogue. And we're talking about deforestation in Nigeria and its resultant effect. That's what we're having as a major one today. On the show, we're talking about deforestation that seems to be one of the highest in the world as it stands, and how best we can curb and deal with the issue of deforestation. And to help us talk about this is no other person but somebody that deals with the environment, and we're talking about no other person but Mr. Felix Ndumadu. Good morning and welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning and thank you for having me. Good morning, viewers.
Well, anyway, many will say our current state as it stands, Nigeria has one of the highest level of deforestation rates in the world. It's estimated that, like I said in my introduction, and we lose about 3.5 to 3.7% of our forests annually. Now, I want you to really help us. Yes, in my introduction, I talked about the issue of energy when it comes to firewood. And that has been a major reason for us losing these trees by the day. But what other reasons also do we have as a major one that causes more of this depletion of our forest reserves?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Before I go further, once again, I have to appreciate the management and the staff of Atlantic TV for always creating this platform for awareness and then promoting environmental sustainability and even environmental justice. So kudos to you guys who are doing well.
Well, thank you.
After having said that, let me go straight to the issue of deforestation. Now, the trees that you see that people use for firewood or other energy sources, as it were, is because of, one, lack of awareness, and then the other part also is poverty in its own side. But before I go further, I want us to holistically look at what we mean by deforestation. In the instance, before you have deforestation, you have to have forest first. Now, deforestation is the excessive cutting down of trees or vegetation areas for either for developmental purposes, for energy use, or for even mining. So when you look at it this way, you also see that deforestation, we have so many types of deforestation. For example, you have the savanna, you have different types of forests. So you have the savanna forest, you have the mangrove forest, which is more dominant in the south, in the Niger Delta, like the rivers, the Delta, Edo, and even Lagos. So when you look at the savanna forest, most time is dominant in the north, like in Kano and other part. Just like you said from your introduction, Nigeria have lost over 90 to 95%, 80% of its forest, natural forest, since inception. Nigeria is next to Brazil. Brazil have lost over 90 to 95%, while Nigeria is next to them by losing about 80% of its forest. When we talk about forest, we have two types of forest, basically. Then from, like I told you, from the natural forest. That is when we will now talk about the savanna, the swampy forest, and then the mangrove and all that. But the two major types are the natural and the plantation forest. When we talk about the natural forest, we are talking about the forest from its source originally made by nature. Then when you talk about the plantation forest, we are talking about the creation of a forest by man by way of planting tree in a particular area to make that place a forestry. Okay, so having said that, let's look at the issue of deforestation and also the causes of deforestation. So before I go further, before I look at the issues and the causes, I also want us to look at the potentiality, the contribution of forests. Yeah. So when we are saying forest is part of the ecosystem. And in fact, forest has its own ecosystem and balancing the ecosystem. Forest can also be linked to protection or to help in the water cycle. When we talk about water cycle, that's when you talk about the rainfall pattern and all that. Now, forests also help because when you have trees, you see that the amount of rainfall coming straight to the earth or coming straight to the soil is reduced because those trees in the forest and the vegetations, they add as a shade to reduce the straight.
Okay, more like a canopy.
Yeah, more like a canopy. So those rainfall, even if it is a heavy rainfall, it does not go straight down to the soil in its own. Then also, don't also forget that forest serve as a resources for medicine. Most of the medicine we take, whether locally or
herbal
or anyhow you call it, even in medical, you see that about 70% of the drugs we take, they are from the herbs. That means they are from the forest. You have trees, you have vegetations that have these elements of healing, and then that is also used for herbs. So those are what forest does. And like I told you, forest also is a habitation to primates, like those animals like the monkey, the gorillas. Like you are seeing that now the Cross River gorilla is reducing as a result of deforestation. So because so many species, they are now become a danger species because of deforestation. You know, when you have a danger species, it automatically leads to extinction. Those species might even lead to extinction. So having said what the forest does for the nature, part of it, not all. So we want to look at the causes.
Yeah.
Why this?
Because as more of us looking at the gains.
Yes.
Because in my introduction, I said more of the reason we're losing these forests is on account of we having cheap energy source to deal with our cooking and the rest.
Yes.
And you've really given us an extra as an environmentalist on as it concerns the gains embedded in us having these forests.
Yes.
But I still want us to continue because we're looking at the financial part of it.
Okay.
Yes, you've talked greatly about how it helps when we talk about not just only protection of wildlife lives, but also the issue of medicine itself.
Yes.
And that's why I want us to go. Do you see economical push as a reason of us losing our trees by the day?
In two ways. When you look at the economically, it's supposed to come in two ways.
Okay.
One, when you even preserve these forests, they boost economy.
Yeah,
For example, you can use them as tourist centers. That boosts economy.
Of course.
Then another one again, the locals, they also depend on some major resources from the same forest. Don't forget that there are other species, whether animals or plants, that the locals depends on as a source of their food.
Yeah.
So it's a part of their economic life cycle, or it's part of their social economy. But looking at it as a nation, or why we have this deforestation, it might seems to be economical, but not really economical.
Why would you say that?
Okay, why I said that? That now brings me to the theory of the Cobra theory in economics. When you are trying to solve a particular problem, immediate problem, then you end up creating a bigger one in the future. You understand? So when you look at it, that, for example, you clear forest areas for mining, for developmental purposes. To us, we see it as economic objective and as an economic gain. But at the end run, have you thought that losing these forests might even cause losing more economy, more resources than the gain we anticipated? So that is why I said that we are looking at it in a wrong pattern, that with deforestation is an economic gain to us. No. For example, when you like I said, should we base on the causes now, so that maybe by then we'll be able to elaborate on it. So
okay, I want us, before we go there, now I have a very staggering report here, that between 2001 and 2023, Nigeria lost a significant amount of tree cover, which with estimates suggesting an annual loss of approximately 1.14 million acres of tree cover between these two periods of just a decade.
Yes.
Now, I'm only really concerned again. Yeah, you talked about the growing risks associated with us having more deforestation than we used to. But I want us to still remain there, because there's this liking, I don't know whether it's true, that we're having high cases of malaria on account of us losing our trees. That the tree cover seems to even help deal with the issue of malaria. But as much as we are losing it, we're now having waters being stored around some major places that if these covers were there, it will not be. Hence, we're now having high risks of malaria. I'm really concerned about the impact. Now, how true is this? And what other quick health issues come on account of us having high rate of deforestation?
Okay, thank you very much. When you look at the deforestation, the impact is enormous, especially when you look at the health impact.
Yes.
Like you said in your introduction, the tree themselves, they absorb the CO2,
yes,
and they help in circulation of oxygen. You understand? That's what they do. And don't also forget that these trees, they filter the kind of air that we breathe. They also help to reduce air pollution, because when they help to absorb CO2, they have already reduced air pollution in that regard. So assuming you don't have that tree to help you take the CO2, that means the CO2 is in the air. It will not only cause health issues, but also environmental issues and even socioeconomic issues.
Okay.
So when we look at the deforestation in itself, it's even linked to several diseases. Because, like I told you, the forest itself has its own ecosystem. And this ecosystem, there are organisms, both micro and macroorganisms, that interact to make sure that they reduce these diseases. You understand?
Yes.
So they help in reducing these diseases. But when you don't have these organisms in place to help curb these diseases, you will see that there will be outbreak of diseases, infections, and all that. And talking about the storming water, for example,
yes,
like I told you, if you have an area where there is a forest before now, that help to absorb, to reduce the impact of the rain, you see that when those forests are not there, you are likely to have accumulation of storming water in that place.
Yes.
And don't forget that storming water is a breed to rodents, like mosquitoes,
yes,
and other reptiles that you see. You understand?
Okay.
So you will not eliminate that theory that is also increasing malaria. Because when you look at almost every individual in Nigeria, I made this statement that last time I appeared, that when you test every average Nigerian, you see that there must be a symptom of malaria. Either it is one or even forming, but there must be that trace of malaria. Why do we have these traces of malaria? Because you have breeding places for mosquitoes. You understand? So what the forest would have helped to absorb, it is now left unattended to. And like I also told you, when you look at the mangrove forest, for example, they are not only there, they also act as a purifier. Don't forget I mentioned that the forests help in the water cycle. So they have their own way of acting to make sure they purify. There are some vegetations that help in purify. Like I gave you an example of the mangrove forest. When water passes through it, it does not come out the same.
Yes.
The same way it
comes
went
more
through.
refined.
It comes more refined because it has gone through process. So when the potentiality of the water circulation now is reduced by way of having those elements that purify them, you will see that the disease is imminent. There is evidence that disease is sure. You understand? So
it's correlated.
It's correlated.
We losing more vegetation will generally increase the sickness and disease trending around this community.
Yes, you are right.
Okay, now let's leave that. And there's even a very staggering report that was recently released indicating that Nigeria has lost about 253,000 hectares of land in 2024 alone, which emits about almost 114 metric tons of CO2, which you talked about, which is indeed a high rate. Yes. And one of the hard-hit states in Nigeria as it stands, according to the deforestation alarm notice, is Cross River State, which indeed we do know has a high level of mangrove forest. Yes. But let's leave that and come to Delta State, because I'm really more concerned us talking about our very state here. Now, in your own assessment, is Delta losing the war against deforestation, or are they really just neck deep into it? Because on mind, this report did not give us a clear indication of where Delta stands. In your own honest assessment, where are we as it concerns the issue of deforestation?
Okay, sorry, before I come to Delta State, let me touch a little on the Cross River like you mentioned.
Yes.
When you are talking about deforestation in Cross River, don't also forget that this new coastal line that has been projected, that road has affected so many ecosystems. In fact, it has caused ecosystem imbalance. You understand? Like people see it, this is a good infrastructure, it will make the place beautiful, but the environmental implication, nobody have considered it. That road crosses over hectares of land. You understand? So there is no way that you not have some element of forest, whether freshwater forest and all that, within that axis that has been eliminated as a result of the coastal road. So when you say there is more of emissions of CO2 in
114 metric tons of CO2,
in Cross River, you can also attribute it to this, that okay, so many trees have been brought down, so many ecosystems have been disturbed, so many forests has been eliminated. So there is no way these forests can also contribute when they are not there again to
the emission of CO2.
To reduce the CO2. Having said that, let's come straight to Delta State as it were. When you look at the Delta State, I've not actually seen a campaign. I've not actually seen an enforcement. I've not actually seen an advocacy focusing on the deforestation in Delta State as it were. You understand? Let me give you, for instance, when we talk about deforestation, one of the causes is for developmental purposes, like I said in my introduction. Now,
when we're having more layouts, new development ground, all estates coming in Delta State.
Apart from that, having new estate, you can also see that in so many cities, they will say this was old road, this is a new road. Now, those new roads, how did they come into being? They went to as far as a forest that were not, no habitations, women were not habitating there. You know, they said, okay, the old one maybe is overpopulated and they needed maybe to create a double lane and get a new space. So in that, you see that when they tell you that we have constructed 500 kilometers of road in that place, take it that 500 kilometers of
vegetation has
been lost. You understand? So when you look at it, when you look at it in Delta State, I will say for sure, we have not even started carrying out the fight as it's supposed to be, because you still have this issue of logging, wood logging and all that in Delta State. In fact, that is the area where you have less government attention and then less government regulation. that is wood lodge in itself. Because you see people, they fell trees, even bigger trees. They fell those trees, they carried them, nobody asked them, why are you falling this tree? Where are you taking them to? You understand? And some people also, they can also go because of agricultural purposes.
Yeah.
They can go in forest, they buy a forest and it's cheaper. So they clear the whole forest and they plant crops for agricultural purposes. So are you seeing it? You are now increasing these forest loss. And don't forget, like I said, Nigeria as a whole has lost over 400,000 hectares of its forest.
Yeah.
Over 400,000 hectares of its forest. Now, when you look at it, much have not been done to replenish those ones. Because even if we said it is better you have the natural forest, but don't also forget this saying that half bread is better than none. It is better you have the plantation forest than having none at all. So when you are clearing these places, you are supposed to create a plantation forest where trees are being planted. And you can even also encourage people to plant trees in their different landscape. You understand? Don't also forget that it is never impossible for you to have a development without clearing the ecosystem of that environment. Example is where we are right now. When you look at this place, you have so many beautiful buildings, but you still have the ecosystem maintained. Yeah. You still have the forest.
So you feel that was a calculated idea or plan by those developers to do it this way?
Yes, it is calculated plan by them. They intend not to eliminate the ecosystem. Yeah, they
to preserve it.
They intend to preserve it as a way of environmental preservation and sustainability. That is why they created it. That you see, you have beautiful buildings, but you still have the natural ecosystem being maintained. So government also, even when they are clearing area, like you said, for estate and all that, they can as well factor the maintenance or the sustainability in mind while creating those estates. You must not clear all area to build an estate.
Okay, well, anyway, well said. I'm really, really interested in us looking at deforestation, especially as it concerns that very report indicating that we seem to be one of the highest in the world in losing our trees. But the question is, what really impact will this in every way have on the economy? Yes, we do know that most of the loss is on account of increasing development in these areas. But indeed, just like he said, you might be gaining on some and losing a great deal behind. But anyway, we're still not behind with the discussion, but moving forward with it. And that's why I really want to come back to you. Now, let's look at the issue of logging. Yes, Delta State will pride itself to have one of the biggest ply business before now. We'll talk about AT&P that existed some couple of years back, but now it seems to be in limbo. But irrespective of that, why do you feel Delta State is now becoming a hub when it comes to the issue of logging?
Okay. The reason is very simple. Okay. Because you see that, like I told you, the Delta State, when you come to this area, it is well blessed when it comes to forest. So you have different types of forest, like I said. You have the mangrove forest in Delta State again. You even have the fresh forest is still in Delta State. You understand? So these trees, they are peculiarities, or they are different breed of trees that you might not even find elsewhere. Wow. So people intend to come because of one recommendation or the other. They come to cut down those trees. But the question they are not asking themselves, when they cut down those trees and they have gone down, they exhaust it, then what will happen? That means they will not have another place to cut down. And that is why we talk about whatever we do, the issue of sustainability. You understand? When you are cutting down those trees now, at this point to meet up your own need, what about the future generation? Which tree are they going to use? Which vegetations are they going to use?
Do you mean Delta State and Nigeria as a whole do not have a sustainable plan as it concerns it? Because let's look at it. We started having issue with birds, and I'm talking about chickens. When we had local chickens and we hardly reared them. But when we started rearing them, we had a low level of import of these chickens to Nigeria. That means as much as you are killing, you are replacing them. Now, do you mean our trees are not factioned out in that way? That we seem to be falling this tree without replacing them. Is that the present stand at the moment, not just in Delta, but Nigeria as a whole?
In fact, to the best of my knowledge, I've not seen any national policy on forestation in Nigeria. Like this is a national policy, though we have national policy on environment.
Yes.
We have national policy on other issues like education and
Yes,
other
yes.
issues.
But
I have not seen that policy document that have stated that in Nigeria, this is the way to go when it comes to forestation. When you want to maintain the forest, this is the way to go. I have not seen it. It might be existing, but for me,
it's not the best of your knowledge.
and that means it is not obvious and conspicuous
for
everybody to see, because it's not supposed to be hidden. It's supposed to be everywhere for everybody to see. Especially people like us that belongs to these professional bodies.
Environmentalists.
It would have been made available to us to have access. Having said that as well, when you look at Nigeria and Delta states, when I came down the other time, I talked about our lack of planning, especially when it comes to long term. We don't have that policy document, that we don't have that planning strategy, that this is the long-term plan, this is the middle term, and this is the long-term plan that will go. So every policy that you see, it now determines by the driver and the initiator of that policy.
Yes.
For example, like I told you, Nigeria, most time their developmental plan is planned around the electionary cycle, like I said that last time. Because when a government comes with an effort to carry out a particular issue, in fact, it might even be considered as a social issue. But when the next government comes, you see that the drive, the forces, the drive and the forces lie low, and it becomes just a normal
white paper.
White paper that people will just flip up and say, oh, this thing was there before. But it will not be like that. But if we have that developmental processes plan in place, and in fact, a systematic plan in place that every government that comes, no matter your person and your belief, you have to follow suit. You understand? Like when you look at American, for example, the issue of climate change has been systematic. Even when Donald Trump is saying that he does not believe in those climate change, you understand?
Yes.
But he cannot eliminate those policy and those contributions to climate change, even as a person when they don't believe in it. You understand? So you see, take that, for example, a Nigerian president saying that he does not believe in any of this. You will see that automatic, that thing is jettisoned. You understand? That thing automatically
So you feel more concern have not been placed on the issue of afforestation?
No, more concern have not. In fact, what we have been doing now is just, we are still in the mercy of organizations advocating for afforestation. There have not been this central element. When if you want to be sure, ask yourself, how many of these government institutions maintain afforestation, even within their own
local
environment? That's the question. That's when you know that these people, they are doing it. You understand? But it depends on the driver. For example, I have to mention Professor Andy Gwenga, the former Vice Chancellor of Delta State University, Abraka. He had this plan when he was the vice of Abraka. He had this plan of planting about, was it about 1,000 or above every year?
Wow.
You understand, as a VC. So it is not a program of the university that program must be held every year. But since when he left as a VC, we have not heard whether it is sustained or that policy is being maintained, is being followed. So you see now, so this is what when we talk about systematic, when something is systematic, it will not depend on individual to strive, but it will depend on the system to just naturally flow like that, no matter who is in place.
Now, let's talk about the issue of international collaboration with this planned move. Like you said, it looks as if the Nigerian government and indeed both at the state, local, and also federal level seem not to have any developmental goal as it concerns afforestation or planting of trees. But let's look, can the international organization help on this? Because the reason I asked this, I could still remember just last year when the former Brazilian president, Bussaranis, was in charge, he made mention of hitting hard on the local forest in Brazil that was home to about helping to remove about almost 45% of the world's CO2. And I could still understand that some international collaborations were made, and even that resulted in real deep cry coming from many foreign countries for him not to do so, undermining he went away ahead to log, which everybody felt was the reason he lost the election to the present President Silva. But international collaboration, can they also help for us to continue on the line of afforestation rather than deforestation, knowing that we are second after Brazil in this trend?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. When you look at it, when we talk about international organizations,
yes.
Now don't forget that Nigeria also belongs to so many international organizations. Like you have the UN, you have the World Health Organization and other organizations that Nigeria belongs to. But don't also forget that each time they came up with protocols, they come with conventions, you understand, they come with a law. And don't also forget that these laws, declarations and all that. Don't forget that these declarations, these protocols, these conventions, they depend on bilateral agreements, and they depend on the nation to have interest and implement it. You understand? Just like in Nigeria, you have law. They will say according to local circumstances.
Yes.
That is how it is. The international organization, they will not come and force it on you. You have agreed to follow it. But if you deviate, the highest they can do is to place some sanctions. You understand? So which Nigeria is also...
Which we've never been sanctioned on that.
No, we've not been sanctioned because we have not... how do I say it now? You know, in Nigeria, we have a way of doing our things. We will not officially tell you are not doing this thing. But unofficially, we are doing it, and officially we are saying we are not doing it. You understand? So it's two ways. If not, but when you look at the issue of afforestation, for example, it's supposed to start, like I told you, from government institutions. You encourage the schools, like every public school. Use an example. Every public school should be an exemplary school. That this is how you plan your landscaping. These are how it's supposed to be. And you now even use that one also as a benchmark for private schools, that this is how your environment is supposed to be. But when you don't have that in place, like I told you, it depends on the good way and the person's understanding of the
issue,
the prevailing issues, and decide to help. And don't also forget, before I go further, let me even bring these two theories to this discussion. We have what we call social issues, and we have what we call wicked problems. Now, what is the difference between social issues and wicked problems? Social issue is that all of us have agreed that this is a problem. So we call them social problems. These are problems. All of us agree and that we have to tackle it. But wicked problem is a problem that all of us did not agree is a problem. Some people are seeing it as a problem, some say it's not a problem. Meanwhile, it is a problem that is ravaging every sector. You understand? That is how I will liken this deforestation to be in Nigeria. Because it's not everybody that have seen that there's actually deforestation. It's not everybody that have seen that there's deforestation.
And once they don't see that, it persists to be a problem.
It persists to be a problem.
Now, let's look at the issue of global warming, because now the world is thinking towards the issue of, how will I put it? The world is now getting more aware as it concerns global warming. The world is now getting aware as it concerns conservation of not just only wildlife, but some of these forests. The world is now getting more abreast with wanting to do more for the planet rather than deplete it of its natural resources. And Nigeria seems to be lacking behind on that ground. Now, let's look at it. How can we help redirect that? Because when we were young, we used to have this green revolution by the Obasanjo administration, his first tenure as a military president, where he brought the issue of green revolution and also helped to give birth to Young Farmers Club. Even after he has gone, 10, 20 years after he has gone, that still was sustained. In many schools, we used to have Young Farmers Club. There are people that were ready to be farmers and they were happy about it. In the IBB military administration, it was a pronounced thing in many schools. But now we rarely see that. But we're having young Nigerians that are also excited to be part of the environment. So how really important is it for us to bring that awareness down to the grassroots, down to the schools, down to the primary schools, down to the secondary schools, for us to catch these people young to see that protecting their environment will come first above every other thing, be it economical, spiritual, physical. So how important is it bringing this to our schools to help make them get that awareness that yes, environmental sustainability is more of a concern rather than depletion?
Okay, thank you very much. Now you have come to the issue of solutions.
Yes.
Now, when we want to look at the solutions, like you said, the first thing is creating awareness and education.
Because the old generation seem not to care.
Yes.
Let's just come to the young ones.
Okay, that's why I say you create awareness and education, like I told you. Like you mentioned, do secondary school. You can go to those secondary school, you talk to them. You can even create these environmental clubs again. Though some societies, they have environmental club.
Yeah.
Like the Nigerian Environmental Society, they have some environmental club in some secondary school, especially in Lagos, State, but I don't think there is anyone actually in Delta State.
Okay.
But they have in Lagos State. So you create such club and you educate them. You encourage them to plant tree, nurture a tree. And they will run from it. And another thing also, talking about, since you are talking about the young one of the solutions, you also encourage them not to waste their books. They should not be throwing their books unnecessarily. Because the more you throw your book, don't forget that those books are made from
by trees.
You understand? So the more you throw book, the more you throw your books, your papers, the more there is a demand for another paper, and the more they cut more trees to produce another one for you. You understand? And also, we should introduce this recycling system in secondary school or even in primary school. Tell them they should be a particular way where they dump their waste papers. Those papers, they should keep it there. And it should be a chain reaction that there's a receiving point who can take it to them. From there, they take it to those companies that can recycle it. Don't forget, like I mentioned, everything that even we refer to waste now in Nigeria is being sold.
Yeah.
Those papers are being sold. If you can gather them, have substantial amount of it, you sell it for some amount, even when the money is meager. But at least it's better than you have wasted it. You understand? So when they are doing these things, they're also helping to conserve the trees. And another thing also, like I told you, if you encourage them that every man or every boy, every girl should plant a tree, in fact, the school should have a system, design a system that you have a tree to your name, you nurture that tree, so that by the time you have left that school, when you come back to your alma mater or you will now see that, this is the tree I planted when I was there. And that now give you a name. You understand? It's just that that some people will tell you that if you do that, write your name on the tree, that the witches and wizards, they might use it to manipulate.
Anyway, we're already being manipulated by witches and wizards that we're having less CO2 and having global warming in the world. So we're already being affected by them in every way.
But in Western world, that's what when you go to some schools, you see that even some they go as far as planting some fruit plant like mangoes and all that. So when they go there,
do you feel our religious belief are also hampered the growth of we sustaining trees? Because we do know that some communities have some trees they worship, but as Christianity comes in, most of these trees have been fallen, and on account of spiritual attack, as they claim that they hear voices in the night there, and not only that, the tree has been the one stopping the family's growth and faulty family foundation. Do you feel that has also affected our rate of having to maintain these long age trees that are close to 100 years? I
think what you said now reminded me of what Professor Mike Rikefe said during our last FMO Okole competition when we were doing, when he was delivering lecture. He's a Reverend Father. So he was talking about our wickedness to the nature, to the tree himself. You understand that we want to maintain ourselves. We want to go to heaven, but we don't want the trees to survive. And those trees, they were created by God. You understand? I think like the point you mentioned, it is this, like I said earlier, lack of awareness that we think whatever that happens, when you hear some noises, even when it becomes psychological, when it becomes when you are stressed up, when it becomes some kind of things going wrong, you felt there are witches and wizards. Or even when you hear a cat, a lone cat crying in the night, looking for help, you say the witches they have come. No, if you go to the Western world, you see that once, even if a child hears the voice of a little cat outside, they rush outside, they rescue us. Even if it is a bird, they go, they carry, they bring it to their house.
But here we bind in the
but
name
here
of...
we start praying, and if there's any way we can kill them, we kill them. But so in that regard, I think by me making reference to Reverend Father Professor Mark, you see that some religious practices, some religious preachers, let me call them preachers, they are tolling in that line of environmental conservation. But just that some that are lacking from it, some they believe that until you cut the ancient tree in your father's house, that you will also remain ancient. You understand that you will never make it. So I think we are using ignorant most times to bring some connotations to what actually does not exist in the right sense. So religious body should, first of all, you have to, like I told you, these religious leaders, it also depends on their knowledge and on their awareness. Yeah. It is what they are knowledgeable about. Like I told you when Professor Mike, because he's a reverend father. He's a reverend father, but his knowledge about the environment, then he now brings the environment into his own approach in religious belief. But those people that they don't know, they are not wired that way. They will also tell you, if they have this belief that is the tree or one thing from their forefathers that have caused it, they will also follow that belief and pass it to their congregation. Even their congregation also pass it to their generation with that belief that witches and wizards, you have to follow every tree. No, it's not always like that. So one thing we should do, I think like I said, if there is a systematic approach to read, you see that government will first of all start from, like I said, federal institutions or public institutions. Let me know whether it can be federal, it can be state or local government. But they should start from public institutions. Then you now approach these religious bodies. You talk to them. You organize trainings for them. By the time you organize that training and they are acclimatized with what is going on, you see that they also pass the same message to their congregation. And this is our orientation of following the ancient trees.
Father trees. For your father's side.
Yes, for your father's side, that they are the one hampering your progress. Meanwhile, the Nigerian system, as it were, does not have that leverage for easy progress. Everybody is struggling it out, you understand? So it's not those people. What about those people that have trees in their father's house, their mother's house, and they see progress? Then what now happen? Does it mean the witches and wizards, they have not found those people?
Maybe it could be white witch. It could be white witch, not black witch.
Okay. So,
anyway, the money we are not going to have any witch flying around here. I feel we've come to the end of this edition of the lovely program. Yes, and we're talking about how we can deal with the issue of deforestation. That seems to be growing by the year in Nigeria. As it's been stated, almost 400,000 hectares of forests have been lost. There's, according to a 2024 report, that we seem to be losing it second after Brazil in the world. And what should we do to indeed curb all of that is what we've taken, or rather have taken center stage on Dialogue today. But we will not go without thanking our very own environmentalist, and I'm talking of Mr. Felix Udumadu, for coming put and also giving his own voice to this growing concern as it concerns deforestation in Nigeria. Thank you so much for always honoring our invitation.
Thank you for having me.
We truly appreciate your insight into all that concerns the environment, and most especially our trees and forests. Thank you so much. But for me, it's more of a wrap-up on Dialogue today for the whole week. I only implore you to remember to drop those comments on our different social media platforms. Let's have your take as it concerns the issue of deforestation, and how can we indeed increase more trees to be planted so our children will at the end not deal with spiritual family trees, but have trees that will not only beautify their environment, but give them more reason to go away with the emission of CO2 that they need more oxygen to deal with. But anyway, like I said, our social media handles will be there shortly on your screen. Go drop your comments. Let's get your reaction as it concerns all of that on Viewpoint on Atlantic TV.